Today we're focusing on the latest technologies. Now let me ask you this question. Have you imagined what life would be without the internet and the usual smartphones that we have? Well, it may also interest you to know that Ghana could leverage more on technology to improve its development. Today on AM Business, we're examining the importance of geospatial technology and how best as a country we could maximize it and benefit from it.
So it may be no news to you now to know that government has a plan to make Ghana much more digitalized. Now we can mention some projects like the digital addressing system and also the introduction of drone delivery services in the health sector. But then how much more does Ghana have to do to be able to reach a full digitalized economy? Well, today we are here at the Africa Geospatial Data and Internet Conference 2019, where we're going to learn more about what exactly is going to take for us to do and what more we can do to get there. Geospatial data can best be described as data about objects, events or phenomena that have a location on the surface of the earth. Its use is evident in everyday living, both for individuals and organizations, from basic services such as weather forecasting to telecom and network services. The Africa Geospatial Data and Internet Conference brought together several stakeholder groups to discuss public policy issues relating to geospatial, open data, ICT, and the internet in Africa. Renowned scientist and one of the originators of internet in Africa in the early 1990s, Professor Nina Akukweno, was present at the conference. In his address, Professor Akukweno noted that there is indeed more work to be done for Ghana to fully harness geospatial data. I decided to engage him more on how best Ghana can leverage on geospatial data to improve development. So spatial data, GIS, and all the benefits it comes with, but then how can Ghana leverage more on this? Looking at businesses in particular, government is doing its best, but then businesses in particular, how can they leverage more on GIS and geospatial data?
Okay, actually, in my opinion, the private sector is a major driver in the use of geospatial data. But at the same time, governments are one of the larger creators of data. Because they've been custodian of much of our natural resources, which are all geospatial, and governments have a number of agencies that are also collecting such data. Now, the best approach would be to find a way by which that data can become accessible to the private sector so that they can innovate around the data. Now, there are ideas being floated around regarding policies on access and sharing of data and also monetizing of data. But the sooner we get to a conclusion on those, the easier it becomes for the private sector, which is really where much of the innovation takes place, will then be able to carry it forward. What one can say is that data is not useful unless it is used. In other words, once the data is just sitting there, then it really has no value. So if the best action one can take is just to make the data available to explore. And once you understand how the data is being used, then you may consider how you yourself may benefit from it through various kinds of arrangements with the different private sector organizations who are interested in utilizing that data.
To understand the importance of geospatial data and how best it can be used, I visited some of the businesses on exhibition at the conference. We are here at another stand and we're going to talk about geospatial data. Now, I'm sure when you hear geospatial data, it might sound all scary and big to you, but then it will surprise you to know that geospatial data is just information about objects that we can find on our land, natural resources and all about that. But then how exactly can geospatial data help us improve development and even planning as a country? So I'm here at the Sahara Natural Resources, but then they work in conjunction with Magza, and you're going to explain to us more how your services run and how they're able to get geospatial data for us and even help us improve and develop our nation further. Hello, sir. So this is Kenneth Adabi. Hello, Kenneth.
Hi.
So Kenneth, tell me briefly about what Magza does and how you're able to generate geospatial data for development.
Okay, so at Magza, we're a designer, manufacturer, and operator of satellites. Our primary goal is to use satellite data to provide Earth intelligence about our planet. Okay, we live on a planet which is very changing, the natural environment is changing, we have growing populations, and we need to be able to understand what is happening around us to be able to help us make key decisions, actionable decisions about the change that is happening. So, for example, climate change is a big issue right now. Our satellite imagery is able to take high-resolution imagery to give to those planners and key decision makers about how we respond and react to climate change.
Now let's talk about geospatial data. It's a very important subject, looking at all that has been said at this conference today. But then how important can it be for planning, for development? How can we use it as a nation to move forward?
Okay, I think I'll give you one example about how important geospatial data is. The census is taken every few years in many countries around the world. There's a lot of countries where censuses haven't been taken for many years, so the data that they have is very old. Ghana has a census coming up in 2020. So it's important for Ghana to be able to realize the importance of geospatial data. Geospatial data can enhance census programs. A census is not only about counting the number of heads, okay? It also provides information about age, sex, socio-economic status. And it leads us to ask some really, really key questions, such as where do we build the next evolution in our transportation system to support our growing population? Where do we build our next hospitals? And also where do we build our next schools and libraries to support the youth that are growing?
So we're still here at the Africa Geospatial Data and Internet Conference 2019. Now we're going to speak to some businesses that are indeed helping make digitization in Ghana possible. Now I'm here with one such company, and that is the Micro Aerial Project. Now they render some drone services, but then this is not the usual one, you know. They're going to tell us what exactly their business is about and how they are helping to drive the digitization agenda. So I have with me Walter Vokman. Now, Walter, hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. So tell me, drones for rights, what exactly does that mean, and what exactly is your service all about?
So our roots are in land surveying, and traditionally we are concerned about helping people to register their rights in land. About over 50% of the world's population is living on land of which the ownership details are not really clarified. So that land is basically dead capital because it's not registered. It cannot be traded, it cannot be passed on to the next generation. And because the ownership details are not clarified, no investor is prepared to put money on that land. So people who don't have their land rights formalized, they suffer from a lack of capital, from a lack of investment. So part of the solution to improving that situation is to register land more quickly. And the registration process involves two parts. One is the geospatial part, which defines where the land is and how big it is. And the other is the non-spatial part, which concerns who the owner is and what the price was and what taxes need to be paid on it, etc. So we are on the spatial side, and we're always looking for solutions to improve the efficiency of land surveying, in other words, of surveying parcel boundaries.
I can see, so your agenda is to make the whole process of land acquisition much more easier. But then has there been any talk between your company and then the Ministry for Lands and Natural Resources? Are you making headway in making this kind of procedure open to government? What is government saying about this and making it more of like the norm rather than having people go to lands and put like physical demarcations there to do checks? How is government welcoming this whole idea?
Yeah, you couldn't have asked a better question for me. You see down here on this poster, there's a company or an organization mentioned called Omedia Network. They have given us a grant to establish drone mapping capacities here in Ghana to support mainly the registration of land rights. And we've been collaborating with 3 instances here. One of them is the surveying and mapping division of the Lands Commission. And we trained some of the colleagues in that mapping division, and they are in fact now already producing. They are actually producing as a matter of routine now.
To date, the geospatial service sector is approaching $300 billion globally and is expected to triple by 2026. The U.S. economy alone currently makes over $1 trillion out of geospatial services. For Ghana, How best can this sector be made essential? Director General of the National Development Planning Commission, Dr. Kojo Mensah Brampa, explained that the application of digitization in the agriculture sector will reap immense benefits for the economy.
Development of spatial frameworks for the various regions, the development of structure plans for our cities and towns, and not only that, but also the provision of the needed services, which are positioned in a way that they can take advantage of each other. Is very, very important. You can never put a market at a place where there isn't an available warehouse that can take up the goods as they come in, take up the surplus after the physical market activity has taken place, and also taking it to the next place through maybe transportation system and all that. So geo information and geospatial information is very, very fundamental.
And as far as I'm concerned, there was a time we did not even have the internet. And it's not that far back. In '93, you didn't have it. It was because of the effort of myself and my engineers at NCS that we had it. And we had it ahead of many, many African countries and took on the responsibility of trying to share that knowledge so that we can go together. So internet is not exactly that new on the continent, but we've not really been running with it. We've been spending a lot of time talking around it. But we need to start to commit ourselves and take some action and support the actual, organizations or people who are involved in developing this area of the technology. Now, it's easy to say, oh, I have a brother who can do this, an uncle who can do this, but not all of them are truly capable. Not all of them are well trained. So sometimes it's better to observe the community and see where the driving of the industry is, and then maybe supporting them in some way, and then we can make progress.
Geospatial services touches on every sector in our lives, but the impact can greatly be measured when it leads to development by helping the country journey towards self-reliance. For Joy Business, Karen Dudu.
That's a great wrap-up as to what technology can do for our country, and also what the players are saying about the effort that needs to be made. Well, when we return, we'll give you up-to-date minute on what the U.S. Embassy's own statement that came in the latter part of the evening of Tuesday on government's own decision to abrogate the PDS deal. Well, Kojo Yankson will have an interaction with Kwame Jantwa. He is an energy analyst and the CEO for Africa Energy Consortium. Do stay on. We'll bring you all that next.